Բարև հարգելի բարեկամներ, Սփյուռքի ձայնը հեռուստահանդեսը դարձյալ ձեզ հետ է։ Այսօրվա մեր հաղորդումը ձեզ կներկայացնի անցյալ կիրակի Նյու Յորքի Times Square-ում տեղի ունեցած հայոց ցեղասպանության 100-ամյակին նվիրված ոգեկոչման միջոցառումը։
Past Sunday, Divine Liturgy was not celebrated in local Armenian churches of New York metropolitan areas, with purpose of consolidating all parishioners from different communities at St. Vartan Cathedral in Manhattan. Jointly serving on the altar were clergies from both of the Eastern Diocese and Eastern Prelacy. The liturgy was celebrated by His Eminence Archbishop Khajak Barsamian, while sermon was delivered by His Eminence Archbishop Oshakan Choloyan. Many notable guests came to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the genocide, alongside parishioners from Armenian community across the tri-state area and beyond, including U.S. Ambassador to United Nations Samantha Powell, as well as UN representatives from over 30 countries from around the world. In a symbolic gesture of solidarity, the UN representatives each lit a candle on behalf of the nation they are representing in memory of the victims of Armenian genocide. Immediately after the liturgy, the faithful, along with thousands other marchers representing large spectrum of our community, walked in procession from 2nd Avenue and 34th Street to Times Square to participate in a rally at the crossroads of the world. At the helm of the procession were the leaders of Armenian clergy, joined by Armenian Ambassador to US Tigran Sarkisyan, Armenian Ambassador to UN Zohrab Mnatsakanyan, and representatives of all major Armenian organizations. Following them were huge crowds of marchers, including thousands of young Armenians representing Armenian youth organizations, schools, and dance groups. All marching strong, vocal, demanding, and determined. The spirit of the marchers was something unlike anything ever seen before, with people holding signs, large posters, and waving tricolor Armenian flags. Over 10,000 attendees converged on and around Times Square to commemorate 100th anniversary of the Armenian genocide. The crowds could be seen from many blocks away, with the bright and shining tricolors of Armenian flag held proudly by Armenian youth. Near stage, prominently displayed, was a khachkar, a symbol of Armenian spirituality and faith. Commemoration ceremony began with welcoming remarks from one of the masters of ceremonies, Dr. Mary Papazian, president of Southern Connecticut State University, after which the Areni choir of the Armenian Society of Little Neck, under the direction of Dr. Armine Vartanian, sung the national anthems of the United States and Armenia. Another master of ceremonies, Armen McCumber, invited Archbishop Oshakan Choloyan to give the invocation. The traditional music of Armenian people could be heard reverberating around Times Square. Armenian dances from Akhtamar, AGBU's Andranik, Yeraz, Haipar, Aradzani, Vanush Khanamirian, as well as Hamazgayin's Nairi and Mehri dance groups performed Armenian dances at the several locations around Times Square, while the skies of Manhattan were sprinkled with 100 white doves, released by the crowds which glided the air in honor of the Armenian martyrs. While for many decades, Knights and Daughters of Vartan have been organizing this event, this year's commemoration was special, bringing huge portion of Armenian population of East Coast to the crossroads of the world. Among the speakers were staunch supporters of Armenian genocide recognition in US, who appear loyally on stage every April and work behind the scenes throughout the year to bolster the Armenian Republic and diaspora. This included Senator Robert Menendez, who called the Armenian genocide one of the darkest events in human history. He called upon President Obama to formally recognize the Armenian genocide and said that he was disappointed that the president has lost his moral compass.
Last year, as the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, I was proud for the first time to be able to pass an Armenian Genocide Commemoration resolution through the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. And this year, a bipartisan group of senators I have been privileged to have join me are pushing a resolution in the Senate that commemorates the 100th anniversary of the Armenian Genocide. And it calls on President Obama to formally recognize the Armenian genocide as genocide. It is time for our nation to recognize the truth. It is time for the United States of America to lead globally on human rights. It is time for us to join the European Union and 11 of our NATO allies in officially recognizing the Armenian genocide. And let our response to Adolf Hitler's question, when he was thinking about the beginning of exterminating the Jewish people, and he was cautioned and he said, well, who remembers the Armenians? Our answer today and forever is we remember the Armenians. We remember the 1.5 million women and children who lost their lives. We remember and honor their survivors, and we will never, never, ever forget.
I'm deeply, however, disappointed that President Obama has not found his compass to formally recognize the genocide as genocide. He was right as Senator Obama when he said that what happened in the loss of 1.5 million Armenian lives was a genocide, but he is definitely wrong as President Obama not to recognize it. We will not stop until we have formal recognition of the Armenian Genocide, to remember those who died, the men, women, and children, to remember the few survivors that still exist, and to ultimately make sure that we send a message around the world that genocide is genocide and we will not tolerate it.
Traveling straight from Armenia, where he attended Armenian Genocide commemorations in Yerevan, Congressman Palone praised the diasporan Armenians for their accomplishments regarding genocide recognition. Congressman Palone stressed that Turkey must acknowledge the Armenian genocide and pay reparations. He also noted his support for the independent Nagorno-Karabakh.
That I know many of you say, well, you know, how much have we accomplished since our own country has not yet in the Congress recognized the Armenian Genocide? The fact is that you have made great progress in getting over 40 states in our country. How many countries around the world, the European Union, the Pope, and the intellectuals, and many people even in Turkey, who today recognize the genocide because of the efforts of the diaspora that have made it possible for more and more people to know about the Armenian Genocide. And I want you to know that those of us in the Armenian caucus, both Democrats and Republicans, who showed up for the commemoration that we had on Wednesday in D.C., many of us, we strongly believe that we need to have genocide recognition. And even though we haven't passed a resolution in Congress, we in the Armenian caucus will not rest until the United States Congress and the President of the United States declare that the Armenian Genocide was, in fact, a genocide. And we also believe strongly that we must make Turkey recognize it. And we have to have Turkey pay reparations and basically acknowledge the genocide and all the consequences of it. And beyond that, we want to have peace in Armenia. We want international recognition of Karabakh that makes sure that Karabakh remains Armenian, either as an independent state or as part of the Republic of Armenia.
Congressman, thank you so much for being here once again. What a wonderful crowd. What a wonderful day.
It's incredible. I think this crowd is at least 3 or 4 times what I've seen before, and I've been here for the last 20 years or so. So it's incredible.
Given the excitement that surrounds 100th anniversary of Armenian Genocide, comments by Pope, recognition by Germany, by Austria, are you optimistic that we're making progress?
Oh, there's no question that the diaspora and those who are seeking genocide recognition are making progress. I mean, we're up to now over 40 states that have recognized the genocide. Most of our NATO allies, and the number of recognitions keeps going up. When I was in Yerevan, I think the president of Armenia mentioned Austria, Germany, just within the last week or so. So it isn't just the state recognition. There's a lot more knowledge about the fact that the genocide occurred amongst the average person, not just intellectuals, but just people in general. So I think this centennial, the Armenian diaspora has really done a great job in making more and more people understand that this was genocide and what occurred, and I think that's going to lead us to have congressional recognition and hopefully ultimately have Turkey recognize it as well.
Just quickly continuing on that thought. I've read President Obama's statement regarding the genocide. It was a bit puzzling because it seems like he accepts everything, except he does not use that crucial word, do you think there's going to be a political will to just say for what it is?
Well, I hope so. I mean, we're going to continue to try to get the Congress to pass the genocide resolution and to try to get President Obama to make a statement acknowledging genocide for what it is. You know, the impression I get from listening to him is that he's saying, you know, as a private individual, I recognize the Armenian genocide, but I can't do it as president. Well, why not? You know, I think that the most important thing that we've learned is that when nations recognize the Armenian genocide, there's only positive consequences. You know, maybe Turkey will withdraw the ambassador for a week or so, but ultimately they don't do anything. So I think we need to learn from the example of the EU and France and Germany that there's no negative consequences from it. And I think hopefully at some point President Obama understands that.
Thank you so much for being here.
All right, thank you.
Senator Chuck Schumer recalled the founder of the Armenian Genocide Times Square Commemoration, Sem Azadian, who introduced the senator to the history of Armenian genocide when he was a newly elected assemblyman.
Why are we here? For many reasons. But we know this. It matters because to secure our place as a civilized people in Armenia and here in America, and indeed in every corner of the globe, we must call out evil for what it is. We must stare directly into the heart of darkness and answer the questions: how did it happen? Who was responsible? Who answered the call for help? And who ran from responsibility? When people are forced to confront these questions, it makes it much less likely that another Holocaust, another genocide will ever happen again. On this day, the sacred centennial of the Armenian Genocide, our responsibility to remember the abuses in history and sober reflection upon them is as important as ever. Because although the Armenian Genocide was the first Holocaust of the 20th century, it was unfortunately not the last. Untold millions suffered as a result of the lessons denied and unlearned. From Hitler's Germany to Stalin's Ukraine, to Pol Pot's Cambodia, to the Balkans, to Rwanda, and to Sudan, these events are more than just a stain on their nations or their continent. They are a stain on humanity. And so, I am so proud that Pope Francis recently said about the Armenian genocide that concealing or denying evil is allowing a wound to keep bleeding without bandaging it. Time and time again, we promise we have learned a lesson, that we will stop these crimes from being repeated. We must never fail to keep that promise. And while America cannot be the world's policeman and have soldiers in every corner of the globe, we must always be the moral compass that awakens the conscience of the world when the lives of innocent millions hang in the balance.
Senator, perhaps I should ask you the most obvious question. Why can President Obama utter the word genocide? In his statement, he admitted everything except that single word.
Well, I think we have to work so that everyone talks the truth, so that the Turkish government admits what happened, and so that the whole world knows that it's genocide.
Given the Pope's comments, Germany accepted it, Austria accepted it. Are you optimistic that Turkey and the United States will get on board?
Yes, truth always prevails, and it will here.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
As he took the podium, New York City Council member Paul Palone encouraged everyone to chant Armenia, delivering on his promise of previous years to make sure the Armenian genocide is recognized in the state of New York. The councilman proudly presented the proclamation to the audience and read it out loud for all to hear.
Again, so everyone can hear you. Armenia! 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 Beautiful! I have Assemblyman Dave Weprin here. Come, Dave. I'd like to read this. There are just 2 paragraphs. I'm going to shorten this, but they are beautiful paragraphs. And even for the children, if you can listen, to what it says. On April 24th, 1915, in the midst of World War I, several hundred Armenian community leaders were invited by the government of Turkey to meet in Istanbul for a discussion of political reforms, only to become victims of a mass murder. Among things this genocide, Armenians were forced to witness the rape, mutilation, and slaughter of their loved ones, the desecration of the churches, the looting of their personal property, the dispossession of their real property, and the loss of their ancestral homeland. The Armenian Genocide was the worst atrocity of World War I, and its bitter legacy has been compounded by a century of painful silence and denial by many. Today, the ancestral homeland taken has been returned to the Armenian people, nor have the Armenians received any compensation for their losses. 100 years later, we continue to remember those who perished. Like most of the world's population, we remain committed to truth, justice, and accountability. That we, the undersigned, the council members, are proud to recognize and commemorate that the Armenian Genocide's 100th anniversary in New York City forever.
Thank you so much for being here. Year after year, you lend your voice, you lend your support for this incredibly important issue. This year you came with your family.
I did.
Which makes it even more beautiful.
I have goosebumps.
So am I. Today is the day to have a goosebumps, to see this incredible crowd, to see this incredible excitement. What do you think has changed this year? Given the Pope's comments, given the Germany acceptance, given the Austria's acceptance, what has changed?
Something is different this year. It is a beautiful feeling. Everywhere I go, not only as a proud father of Armenian children and my wife, throughout the city, throughout the country, throughout the world, there's pride, there's acknowledgement, there's recognition for the first time. And all of these places that we celebrate, you feel the warmth, you feel the tears, you feel the passion of what has happened. And I think because of the 100th commemoration, now other people are saying, hey, what happened? Oh, 100 years ago? That was the first genocide? And it's helped us spread the word in a way that we were never able to do before.
I've read President Obama's statement. In essence, he accepted everything except that word genocide. Are you optimistic that that day will come, that we will receive the correct definition of what has happened?
It has to. It has to. It has to come. The world has recognized its time. And we understand, you know, the difficulties, right? Because once you acknowledge, now you're talking about reparations and a government and a country that doesn't want to give back and pay for what they took. It's more about once it's recognized, now you're recognizing your guilt, and now you must pay. And because of that, it's stalled, and not because of the lack of attention. Everyone is here saying it has happened. It's the totality of what would happen once you admit it. The lawyer side of me, I says, once they acknowledge it, the lawsuits are going to come and all the rest. But it should. My mother-in-law has a document that she took when she fled, and she came, and her family, and it is the original document given by Turkey that says, we have your property, come back and get it one day. And they refuse to acknowledge that document. How many more Armenians have that document? That their land was taken, their homes were taken, their lives were taken, and everything was taken away. And all of my family and fellow Armenians are waiting to take back what is theirs.
Finally, I want to take this opportunity and ask you a personal question, if I may. What would you like your children who are here to learn from this?
That's why they're here. To let them know the pride of the Armenian community. I remember when my father, who was the Speaker of the City Council, he said the Italians are a very proud community, but they're Americans first. They're Italian Americans. And with the Armenians, they have adopted America as their home, but they have never forgotten their pride. And I want my children and my family to know that they are proud Armenians, they're proud Italians, and their grandchildren will know, and their great-grandchildren will know, and the fight will always go on. To see my daughter's faces look up at me when we started the chant, with over 25,000 people, more, smiling. They had a tear, I had a tear. It means the world. So it means we're doing something right. We're doing something right.
Thank you so much for being here. What are your impressions? What are your personal feelings today?
My personal feelings are that we all have to speak out no matter what religion or ethnic background we are. Because had people spoken out in 1915 and prevented the Armenian Genocide, the Holocaust, killing 6 million Jews, would probably not have happened. Because Hitler's...
Who remembers Armenians?
Yeah, well, Hitler said, no one said anything when the Armenians were killed, so who's going to care about the Jews? who's going to care about the next group? Who's going to care about the next group? So we have to stop hate wherever it exists. We have to stop genocide wherever it exists, and we all have to speak out. And the 100th anniversary should be a lesson to the world that we cannot forget. We have to remember to prevent any kind of genocide happening anywhere in the world.
Thank you so much. Congresswoman Maloney restated her support of the Armenians and refused to let anyone forget the Armenian Genocide.
Well, we are here today to say the whole world must remember. It must be in the textbooks. It must be recognized, not only by Turkey, but every country in the world. And that is why we must speak out about the genocide. We must teach it in our schools. We must create museums about it. We must speak at these rallies on the floor of Congress, and why we must never, ever let anyone forget what happened to millions and millions of Armenians, because their tragedy is our tragedy.
You've been coming here year after year after year. Have we made a progress?
I believe we have. We're roughly 100,000 strong. 130,000 spoke out yesterday in Los Angeles. We have Turkish scholars now saying that it should be in the Turkish textbooks. And genocide is genocide. Murder is murder. Death is death. It's the American ambassador at the time, Morgenthau, documented his distress to the detail of the murder of the Armenians, and the American government should recognize it, along with every government in the world, and the Turkish government. I tell you, when I first went to Congress 20 years ago, the Armenian community came to me and asked me to help them, and I've been helping them every single year. And I'm saying, when is this going to be acknowledged? Everyone knows it. We are building a Turkish museum. We are putting it in our textbooks, but the Turkish government refuses to acknowledge it, and it's time for America to join the world community and speak out against one of the worst atrocities. And if you remain silent, you in a sense are condoning it to happen again. We should remember the Jews, we should remember the Tutsis, we should remember the massacre of the Indians in our own country, and we should remember the massacres in Syria, the refugees, all the problems there, and we need to remember the Armenians.
Just quickly to follow up on that thought, I've read President Obama's statement regarding the 100th anniversary. It seems to me that he acknowledged everything. He accepts everything, and the only thing he does not do is use that singular word. Why?
I learned a long time ago not to speak for another elected official, so he is certainly capable of speaking for himself. I was in Washington last night, and he gave a great speech. He's done a lot of things to help the economy of America, to make us a safer nation, and to help our allies, and Armenia is an ally. So he's done a lot of good things, and I'll say when I see him I might ask him, but I don't know.
Esteemed Turkish historian and academic Taner Akçan, a trailblazer in openly acknowledging and discussing the Armenian genocide, said he was representing another Turkey, consisting of people who are ready to rediscover their past and to erase the black stain of their history.
Today does not merely mark the centennial of the annihilation of some 1.1 million Armenians. It also marks a century of denial of this crime. The Turkish government continues to deny not merely any responsibility for the horrors inflicted upon Armenian people, but even the fact that it happened at all. As a Turk, it is from this fact that my sorrow and great shame derive. My sole consolation is that I do not grieve alone. The nation of Turkey consists of more than simply its denialist regime. There is another Turkey, and the citizens of that Turkey are ready to face their history. It is those Turks who feel obligated to erase the black stain left by those who committed these crimes. In more than 25 cities, from Istanbul to Van, the people of this Turkey have not waited for denialist government to recognize the genocide. Instead, they have been blazing a new path, one that allows them to discover their past. Without this recognition, subsequent generations cannot properly mourn and heal. Mourning and healing are necessary for closure and can only come after the truth is acknowledged. If we fail to do so, we inadvertently lend legitimization to perpetrators and their goals. After decades of denials, you Armenians need to heal and to be assured that the justice you seek will be attained.
It is a true honor to have you on this demonstration today. What an incredible day, what an incredible crowd, and your words touched a nerve with every single person who's present here. Perhaps I should ask you a question that in the mind of everyone here. Where is Turkey today on this issue? Have you seen any progress, given all the publicity, everything that we've received for this past few weeks?
As I said, there are two Turkeys. There is not one Turkey. And to my understanding, the official Turkey is far away of recognition of Armenian genocide. But there is a growing civil society, and I'm very hopeful, and I'm hoping that this growing civil society in Turkey, along with the diaspora Armenians and along with international community, pressure Turkey to recognize the Armenian genocide.
And are you optimistic that the United States would finally use that word genocide?
It is not an issue of being optimistic or pessimist. You have to do what you want to believe. And to be honest, I never want to be an optimist because in Turkey we know that ever and ever when any development is there, it backlash, it goes back. So what I can convey from here is you don't need to fight for recognition to be optimist. You have to do what you have to do, and one day the truth will prevail. This is what I believe.
Thank you so much for being here. Academy Award winner and playwright Alex Dinelaris artfully spoke of his grandmother Rose and the influence she had in imbuing his Armenian roots into his life.
As a child out of family circumstance, I was raised by my Armenian grandmother, Vartan, Grandma Rose. She raised me on Armenian food, on Armenian music, on Armenian love. And I have never known another love that compares to it. Winning an Academy Award was a dream come true for me, but it was a dream afforded to me only by the unfathomable journey that my grandmother took. When she died in 1989, I felt separated from my Armenian roots. And yet, 26 years later, I am here in the middle of this magnificent gathering, and I am home.
You just spoke very passionately about the recognition, about your own work that involves with Armenian genocide. Share with us a little bit about your feelings of being today here.
I mean, for me, it's a miracle. Thinking about my grandmother, who is this tiny little Armenian woman, and what she had to go through to allow me to be standing on that stage. They say, if you talk about dreams coming true, I don't have a dream without her effort and her journey to get here from Armenia to New York. And to be here and be able to represent her on a day like this is something I'll never forget. It's amazing.
It seems like in numerous interviews that you and I had together, we've covered pretty much every topic except one. When are you planning to go to Armenia? Particularly, are you planning to be there on a commemoration of a genocide on April 24th?
Well, I would love to. I would love to. My youngest daughter is 1 year old, so maybe by next year we'll be able to go. She'll be 2. That might be good enough. So hopefully I can bring my family next year.
In your future plans, whether it's a play or it's a film project, any possibility of returning to a subject of Armenian genocide?
I don't know if I'll return to the genocide. I will return to Armenian culture and the family. I think I've written my genocide play, but I will write about the Armenian culture again. Matter of fact, there's an Armenian character in our television show already, in the one I'm doing now with Alejandro Gonzalez and Yaritu. So it'll always keep alive. But I think the next play I write about Armenians will be about a regular family with normal problems and show that Armenians are a culture just like any other, and they're not other than. It's not all about the genocide, but it'll be about family, and so I think that'll be next. But I will return to Armenian culture for sure.
And that ties me to the question I asked before. In order for you to write that story about that family, you must go there first.
That's for sure. That's for sure. You have to live it and feel it. And so, as you know, as a filmmaker, yeah.
Thank you so much. Best-selling author Chris Bohjalian, also one of the masters of ceremony, stressed that genocide matters both morally and politically. He pointed out the direct link between the Armenian genocide and the ones that followed in the past century, urging the world to put righteousness before the politics.
The genocide matters morally, and the genocide matters politically. It matters because it was an unpunished crime, and a crime of cataclysmic proportions. It matters because this impunity fostered a century of killing. There is a direct link between the Armenian Genocide, the Holocaust, the Cambodian killing fields, Bosnia, Rwanda, Darfur. The genocide matters because to this day, as we know better than anyone, Turkey denies it, and our own president enables them, bowing to Ankara by refusing year after year to utter the word genocide.
I literally got goosebumps.
Thank you.
Because you spoke from your heart, you spoke forcefully, you spoke about our motherland. You said if you want to know a cultural genocide, go there now. You said murder cannot be hidden. Can you elaborate a little bit on that point? Because it seems to me that we're still fighting for Turkey and the United States to recognize the genocide.
This is an amazing day, but I do feel we are winning. And I feel we are winning because more and more people around the world are discovering the truth of this part of our story. The denialists, whether they are in Turkey, Azerbaijan, or any place in the world, who would try and deny the Armenian genocide, are being drowned out by voices of reason and voices of honesty and voices of history. All of us who are going back, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 blocks in Times Square today are either descendants of survivors of the Armenian genocide or are friends of descendants of survivors of the Armenian genocide. I called the Armenian genocide in my novel the slaughter you know next to nothing about. But that was 3 years ago. Now it has. Now I feel it's the slaughter everyone is learning something about. And I have never been more proud to be an Armenian than I have been the last 4 weeks as I've watched everyone from Pope Francis to the European Parliament to Kim Kardashian to Germany, yes, champion our point of view and the truth of what our ancestors endured.
Thank you so much. The musical highlight of the program was a touching performance by popular musician Sebu Simonian of the Grammy-nominated indie pop duo Capital Cities. Traveling from Los Angeles to perform to the Times Square commemoration, Simonian shared his family's story of escape from the Armenian genocide. Before playing his set,
Cilicia is where I wanna die. Cilicia is where I wanna die. Sangam nesnes imgiligya Ashkar morit yedurare Sangam nesnes imgiligya Ashkar morit yedurare Sangam nesnes imgiligya Ashkar morit yedurare Sangam nesnes imgiligya Ashkar morit yedur.
Rabbi Stephen Burke from Simon Wiesenthal Center Museum of Tolerance urged the next generation to continue the fight and stop crimes against humanity.
And what is going on today in Turkey is an embarrassment to the world. It is an embarrassment not to call it for what it is. It is 100 years. How long will it take till they can use the word genocide? And I am telling you here and now, the way genocide happens is because bullies rise up and no one says a word to them because people get scared. They are bullied. And what the Turks are doing now in Turkey is bullying behavior. And we must, this country must stand up and call it for what it was. Call it a genocide.
You are here to lend your voice, to lend your support to our cause. What are your impressions about today?
Oh, you know, the number of young people here, it's one thing to get people coming out, but when you get the next generation here, it's beautiful that they understand the atrocity that happened, the genocide that happened, and they're here to make sure it never happens again and speak strongly.
Unfortunately, Armenians and Jewish people have a lot in common, and a lot of it is tragic. How important it is to recognize it and for the world to understand this atrocity is war equal to genocide.
You have to. I mean, the Rwandans, the Cambodians, you can go on. I'd love to say that the Armenian was the last genocide, but we've seen in the last 100 years so many different genocides, and it's up for all of us together to speak out. And today's day and age, you know within 30 seconds if a genocide is happening somewhere in the globe. And if we listen to the Turks and we don't come forward and we don't call it for what it is, then how do you stop it if you can't even name it?
Are you optimistic that we're going to get the justice that we deserve, particularly from Turkey and the United States, for that matter of fact?
No, I'm not optimistic. I don't think Turkey will ever, but the United States must recognize it for being a genocide, and I think the Pope Francis was wonderful that he called it for what it was, which is the first genocide of the last century.
Among the speakers were also Honore Gatera, who serves as the manager of the Kigali Genocide Memorial Center in Kigali, Rwanda, and brothers Benjamin and Angelo Makar, both survivors of what is known as Lost Boys of Sudan, when 20,000 children were forced to flee civil war in 1997. Estimated half of the boys died before they were able to reach the camp in Kenya. Knights of Vartan Grand Commander Steve Karadzian and Daughters of Vartan Grand Matron Lisa Karadzian delivered remarks.
Especially to the young people here today, I say let us completely devote ourselves to the service of our people. Let us so perfectly collaborate amongst each other, and let us so effectively amplify the chorus of voices saying never again to genocide.
Today, if you could only see yourself, if you could only hear how you sound. Today, all of our voices join with the voices of our beloved ancestors in the heavens. Today, we sing a new song. Today, our voice is being heard around the world. Today, we speak with one voice, the voice of victory.
Haigo Shakan made his remarks on behalf of the Armenian National Committee of America.
You should be here with us. You should be leading our marches. You are the future for us. You will carry on the struggle because we will never give up. And this is what Turkey doesn't understand. Turkey doesn't realize that we will never forget, that we will never rest, that we will eventually make Turkey pay for the crime of genocide. We will make Turkey recognize. We will make Turkey apologize. We will make Turkey pay for its crime. Turkey failed, and Turkey will pay for its crime.
Van Krikorian spoke on behalf of Armenian Assembly of America.
When we think of the pain of all of those martyrs, those saints in unmarked graves, without stones, crying out, we know that it is our honor to continue their work. I've also always viewed this event as a time when we hear from non-Armenians who express their solidarity and give their perspectives, and then we as Armenians express our appreciation toward them.
The winners of this year's Knights of Vartan High School Essay Contest were announced at the program. David Hovanesian first place, Nikolani Isagolian second place, and Narek Balyan third place.
Պարոն դեսպան, ինչ է ձեր զգացումը, ինչ կուզեիք ասել մեր ժողովրդին։
Ես ձեզ նման հուզված եմ շատ, տեսնելով այսպիսի համախմբվածություն հայության եւ դա արդարության կոչն է, որ մեզ այսօր համախմբում է։ Դա մեր սուրբ նահատակների հիշատակն է, նրանց հոգիների կանչն է, որ այսօր մեզ միավորում է եւ հավաքում է բոլորիս միասին։ Եվ եթե մենք այսպես հավաքական լինենք միշտ, մեր առջև որևէ դժվարություն չի կարող կանգնած լինել։ Մենք կհաղթարենք բոլոր դժվարությունները եւ կհասնենք մեր նպատակին։ Փառք հայ ժողովրդին։
Archbishop Khajak Barsamian delivered the benediction.
This is the power of the Spirit, the power of renewal, the power of faith, which gives the deepest meaning of our gathering here this afternoon. It is your gift to us, Lord, and through it we embrace the gifts of God's love for all his children without any discrimination.
The program concluded by performance by the RNE choir performing God Bless America and Hayreni. In the face of ongoing denial, the response was loud and clear, not only to Turkey, but to the rest of the world. In a wake of dissemination, the Armenians have only grown stronger.